Welcome to the Numerology and the Astrology for June 11th, 2020. If you add all those numbers together, you get the number 12, and if you add the 1 and the 2 together, you get the number 3. So once again, we can separate the 1 and the 2, and so it says stand for your individuality, stand up for yourself, be humble, be authentic, be real, be sincere. And then notice the duality, notice the things that want to pull you out of balance into that duality, the good, the bad, the right, the wrong, the positive, the negative, the masculine, the feminine, the black, the white, all of that. Just notice that duality. And so what is authentic? I mean, what is authentic? Authentic is balance. Authentic is not polarization. And so, you know, we live in this world of duality, which by its nature pulls that authenticity apart. And so how do we, knowing that this world loves to split things and pull them into duality, you know, what do you have to do inside of yourself in order to maintain that sense of calm? And I find for myself is that when I recognize that I'm in the duality, or I have gotten pulled off my center, to immediately admit that I've been pulled off my center, and to talk to the person or ask for forgiveness, or try to have a conversation that brings me back to authenticity. Because almost always that duality is, it pulls you off center because of fear, or reactions from the past, or your history, or it's literally a neurological pathway that's like a knee-jerk reaction for yourself. And so, you know, you keep getting pulled into this duality one way or the other. And, you know, the only thing I know that can take you out of the duality back to oneness is to reconnect to your authentic self. So today, you know, notice both sides of your nature, because if we add the 1 and the 2 together, we get the 3. And the 3 is about positive mind. And I think that when things have been split apart into the duality for so long, and they come back together, there's this real sense of positivity that comes back in, like, okay, I have a divine part, I have a devilish part, I have a light part, I have a dark part, I have an old part, I have a young part. And I like to say that I think humanity inside of all of us is a parts party. And so inside of us, we have these parts that you know, like to compete, and like a top dog and an underdog. And they tend to separate things, and they will continue to separate things until you learn mental discipline to bring both of those sides back together. Still coughing because of allergy season. Okay, so I want you to notice what is obvious and what is hidden. And it's just trying to figure out how to integrate both of those sides. Otherwise, one will tend to overwhelm you, and you may feel terribly guilty about the results. So take time for yourself. Recognize that you have to restructure your priorities, and the way it is situated is not aligning or giving you what you want. When you put yourself to the side too many times, it creates a lot of resentment that will build up to the point of exploding. And right now, boy, this world is exploding, and we need way more sanity and clarity than we need reaction and upset. Take responsibility for yourself first and foremost. You cannot fix the world. It is not your job to fix the world. It is not your job to convince anybody else about what they believe, because their path is their path that they are on. And it's only by them stepping on their path will they recognize and come out of their own deluded reality and see things for what they are. But while they're on that path, you know, fast track going into delusion, I mean, trust me, there's just no way to stop anybody. So we are in for a wild ride, and take the time that you need to help yourself shift out of the pressure point that you are intimately feeling. And things cannot happen with clarity if there is no calm center first. The astrology for today. The Sun squares Neptune on Thursday, and you will feel the tension has been building for a few days. Know that sleep is a huge priority for a number of reasons. You are at the end of a very long rope. Do your best to not snap. Such an aspect leads you down false pathways. The Pisces moon adds to the disorientation, and it may feel as if the world is spinning out of control and you with it. Those chips on your shoulders of yourself and others are very, very real. If someone pushes your buttons, you will probably snap, and so will they. There is nothing like seeing your worst self come flying out. It might be better to be alone than to try and navigate the minefield that is showing up for the next few days. Sorry, nothing like coughing. I was outside in the pollen. Okay. Exhaustion is a big factor in all of this, and you are feeling tired of doing so much and being challenged in so many ways, and you have to you are way past any previous limits that you have experienced. And I mean, I hear this from so many. It's almost like them working at home. They're working more because now we're trying to do these house projects that we've never had a chance to get to, and now we're also dealing with the kids being at home, and now we're also dealing with the fact that you don't want to lose your job, and so you're trying to go above and beyond the call of duty with your job. And so the pressure points are really intense. So you want inspiration to flow, but find more exasperation instead. Nothing seems certain, and that feeling lost in the shuffle of life is making you feel directionless and not important. Venus and Chiron sextile and are attempting to get you to look at your own needs and healing first. Connection with others is important right now, and I know that this means not so much physical contact, but it's that we at least need to pick up the phone and call our best friend for emotional, moral support. Your personal human weaknesses and imperfections are really obvious right now. And once again, you see that you have given too much away and are now feeling drained and without the vitality you are seeking. The Sun and Mars continue to agitate and aggravate, and the volatility index is extremely high. This world is not working out the way anyone had hoped or wanted, while globally we need to concentrate on what it is we do want. This entire week, the focus is challenging to maintain. Okay, so my quote for today. Things cannot happen with clarity if there is no calm center first. Okay, so I feel compelled for my blog today to just tell you a story. And the story was about when I was a ballet dancer at the Berlin Ballet. And a couple of things. First of all, I'm 17 years old. I was in New York before that, so the pressure points were incredible. So my father basically said to me, you can go to New York, but you have to be on a budget, and you have to go to professional children's school, and you have to take trigonometry, elementary analysis, calculus, vocational office education, shorthand, typing. So while all the other dancers there were taking Art 101 classes, really easy classes, and going to Tavern on the Green for lunch, I was eating bagels and cream cheese and had books like this thick, that I was navigating and dealing with. And my father required me to make straight A's. And if I didn't make straight A's, I was coming home. So the pressure was really, really unbelievable. And so when I went for my evaluation with Balanchine and I did not get into New York City Ballet, I was devastated. I was absolutely, totally devastated. And, I literally wanted to jump off a ledge or something. It was really bad because the pressure point inside of myself had been so high for so long, for 3 years. And then to suddenly realize that your dream is falling apart and all this effort that you put in meant nothing. And knowing that you were the best dancer in your group, which was true, and even Mr. Balanchine said that. He said, I was the best dancer in that group, but he had hired Berezhnikov to the ballet company, and New York City Ballet has a lot of tall, lanky girls like me, and he needed short girls to stand next to her. So he hired all the short girls in my class, and I was left out in the lurch. But what he did do was he arranged for a audition for me with the Berlin Ballet that happened to be performing at the State Theater in New York that summer. And so I went to the audition, got the job, which is a whole other story of itself, but I won't go into that here. And the next thing I know, I'm on a plane going to a foreign country with a language that I don't speak. I'm 17 years old, and, I end up staying at St. Hildegard's Hospital in the nunnery with the nuns because I couldn't get an apartment. And so everything was stress. So you can see the buildup. Like I'm under 3 years of stress and all the schooling, and my father is super pissed off that I'm even going to Berlin because he wanted me to go to college and get a degree in engineering because I was so good at all the maths and the sciences. And suddenly I'm in this foreign country in a completely strange reality with the wall up in Berlin back then. With squatters riots happening, and you can't get an apartment, and then I'm in a ballet company, and it's a big ballet company. I mean, there were a huge number of dancers because the theaters in Europe are very big. And so, and I'm struggling, I'm struggling to maintain. And then the ballet teacher decides that she's going to make an example out of me in some way. And so she's putting a tremendous amount of pressure on me. And I think I cried every single day for 1.5 years. So I would be in rehearsal, she would scream at me in German, and there's nothing like being screamed at in German, especially when you don't completely understand what they're saying. And so, and I would go home and I'd cry every single day for 1.5 years. I mean, the pressure was unbelievable, And I was so miserable that I tried to go to the Zurich Ballet because it was a Balanchine-based company that was run by Patricia Neri. And I did an audition, and I walked into this cattle call audition in Switzerland, and there were 110 women there. And this rehearsal, this audition, I thought was going to last like an hour or 2 hours or something. It lasted 6 hours. And so we are dancing and doing variations and doing all this stuff for 6 hours. And it's completely exhausting. And at the end, I was one of 3 standing at the end of it. And at the end of it, she says, all of you are good enough to be in the company, but you do need to know that I have to do a priority based on if there's a Swiss girl that has the skill set. And so what ended up happening was she had to hire the Swiss girl. So then once again, I was stuck in Berlin with the wall up during the Cold War, with terrible housing, and Berlin is a beautiful, alive city now. But when I was there from 1978 through 1982, it was dark and dreary and cold and miserable, and it was really hard. And learning German and learning a foreign language, and the hot challenge in the Berlin Ballet was that there were people from every country. So we had Russian being spoken, Polish being spoken, French, Icelandic, Swedish, Dutch, South African, which is Afrikaans, and we had Aussies and we had New Zealanders, and it was just this. It was a mishmash, a smorgasbord of a lot of different styles and types and abilities. And there's a lot of pressure. There's a tremendous amount of pressure to compete and to stand up and to deal with it. And so, it's like being in a pressure cooker, a ballet company. And, literally there were ballet dancers that would rearrange my shoes because then I would have the wrong shoes on for a particular variation, or they would move my brushes, the viciousness of ballet companies can be shocking. It can actually be shocking. And I had to pay the maska, the costume people, to sit in my dressing room and to not let them touch anything because of that. And so the pressure was just incredibly intense. It was just building and building and building and building and building. And so it built to the point that I finally got a job with Ballet West, and I was super happy, but I had to give a year's notice. And then I gave my year's notice, and then they wanted to give me a carte blanche contract so that I would, be a soloist and, you get principal roles and all this kind of stuff. And the moment I went into a negotiation with them, it invalidated my year-long contract. And then the next thing I knew, when I said, no, I think I still want to go to Ballet West, they basically said, oh, well, now you have to stay 2 years. And I ended up with a lawyer that I spent $40,000 on a lawyer, which the theater people would never show up, and my lawyer would show up, which meant I had to pay the lawyer. And so I ended up in this contract dispute for 8 months, 6 months. And then what happened was that, I finally got released from this contract, but I got sick. I got terribly sick. I got pneumonia 3 times. I almost died. I literally should have died. And I give this as an example because, you know, we all get in these pressure cookers and we all end up in places where we get lost and confused and we lose our center. And I spent the next 4 years trying to gain my center back. And then it was still hard because then I went into another pressure cooker, which was called Ballet West, and they decided that most of the dancers decided they didn't like me. And so then that was in another pressure cooker. And so there's this place where I learned that the reason I'm doing this story is that the external reality is a pressure cooker. It is always a pressure cooker. It has never not been a pressure cooker. And so what you have to do is to know yourself and to be in your center no matter what it is doing, because otherwise you're going to get completely lost and confused. So I just shared a little bit of my life. So, you know, people think, oh, you know, her life is always so perfect and everything like this. And I go, no, you know, everybody's life has crazy stuff. Everybody's life has really big, intense moments. And so I hope that you recognize your own pressure cookers, your own places where it took years for you to reclaim your center and to recognize we're in one of those at the moment. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.